thought like that's where Buddhism was going to be transplanted, like Tibetan Buddhism and modern Buddhism.
Well, you need the support from the lay people, no?
Yeah.
Anyways, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Good evening, Dhamma greetings to all of you. So I would like to welcome all of you to our bi-weekly sutra discussion with the Venerable monks and nuns. So first, let us pay our respect and homage to the Buddha, and let us recite Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Hey, dear friends in Dhamma, it's such a great joy to have this bi-weekly sutra discussion with our Venerable. Although we extend our invitations to the Venerable nuns, I think they are busy, they have no time to join, but at least we are very fortunate to have some Venerable monks who continue to be part of this bi-weekly sutra discussion. So before we get into today's discussion on very beautiful discourse of the Buddha, I would like to introduce our Venerable monks to our audience. Ananda Kalapovila, he's from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And then we have Venerable Judao. He is normally from Florida, but this time he's joining the discussion all the way from Vietnam. So it's early morning, I think 6 o'clock, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 5. So very happy to see you joining the discussion despite your busy day over there and time difference. And then we have Venerable Digale Somawangsha. He's joining the discussion from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Then we have Venerable Bhante Jayasara. He's joining the discussion from New Jersey. Last time you joined the discussion from the Indonesian temple in New York City.
Yes, Bhante. Now I'm actually with Bhante Rahula, who comes on here fairly often.
Oh, okay.
So I'm in Maryland.
Okay. Today you joined the discussion from Maryland, from Bhante Rahula's temple. I actually sent an email to Bhante Rahula, but since I didn't hear from him, I thought he must be busy. So thank you. And then we have Bhante Kusala. He is joining the discussion from Boston, United States. And then we have Venerable Shanta Sobana. He is joining the discussion from Los Angeles, United States. And we also have some devotees on Zoom platform. And so I would like to welcome all of you. And also our friends who are watching this live program on YouTube and Facebook, I would like to welcome all of you to our Venerable monk, Venerable Bhante Nandaloka. He's, I don't see him, his video, but he's here. He is joining the discussion from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So, last 2 weeks ago, when we had this discussion on the Ambalattika Rahulovada Sutta, the parable of the mirror, really loved it. And in fact, for last 2 weeks, whenever I gave them a talk, and my Dhamma talk was based on that sutra in different ways. So people greatly appreciated the insights and wisdom you have shared with our audience. So today we have another beautiful sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya. That is the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 7, Vattupama Sutta, the parable of the clouds, or the simile of the clouds. And we have named the topic of the discussion as pure mind, impure mind, happy destination, and unhappy destination. So we will have very open discussion about the sutta. So to give the summary of this sutta, I would like to invite Venerable Anand Kalabula from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada, to give us a summary of this sutta. Venerable Ananda.
Greetings to Venerables. I see ISOM also joined, so monks and nuns both. And the people, they are play friends, Kalyana Mitras. Like Bhante mentioned, we have a lot of similes or parables. So we have Vattupama, Kettupama. Kettupama means taking a field of rice for as a parable. And here it's the Vattupama. Vattu means the vastra or the robe or the garments that you wear. So, like in many other sutras, this takes place at the Jetavana Grove Anathapindika's Arama monastery, and Savatyam Viharati Jetavana Anathapindika's Arama, which is very commonly used. In fact, in the Shavastiti, they say that more than 800 sutras have been discoursed there, and during most of Buddha's life, about 25 bus seasons was spent in Savatthi. And there are many interesting stories about patron Anathapindika and how he got the monastery from Jetha. So Jetha being the son of Vasena the king, and how he had to bargain with Jetha. So it's a long story. So there's also a discussion that had Buddha really lived in Savatthi for so long, almost Pali Canon, the oral tradition has been systemized in that region. So there are many interesting discussions about that. But coming back to our Vattupama Sutta, it starts by saying, monks, suppose the cloth was stained and dirty, and the dryer dipped in some dye or other, whether blue, yellow, red, or pink, it would take the dye badly and be impure in color. And why is that? Because the cloth was not clean. So too monks, when the mind is defiled, an unhappy destination may be expected. Now, reading this sutta for the first time, I happened to do a class for the Sunday school yesterday, and what I found was reading the Dhamma, like Bhante mentioned, Manopupangama Manosetta Manomya, Manasache Padutena, Vasativa Karotiva, but there's a last one, Tatona Dukkha Mameti Chakkancha Vahatopana. Now, that was a parable or a simile, and I was trying to explain it to the kids who are Canadian second generation born kids. What is a Chakkancha just as the wheel follows the hoof prints of the ox that draws the cart. Now, if you never have seen a buggy, at least a Mennonite buggy traveling in Almeida or in a place like St. Jacobs, we can't get that parable. So the same goes to this Vattu parable. If you have never tried to dye a cloth, it doesn't make much sense. And having said that, I remember that we got trained. We used to dye our own robes. It doesn't happen very often now, but we used to dye the robes. And once you try to do that, you understand, like, if you have ever done batik dyeing, you can even put a pattern so the dye doesn't stick to the cloth fully. That's the batik pattern essentially. And the same way, when you try to dye the robe, if the robe is impure, if it's not thoroughly washed, it doesn't get dyed or stained homogeneously. There are impurities in it. So understanding the parable is very important, I think, in reading the Tripitaka, the Pali Canon. Again, we get overwhelmed with these patterns. We find there's a pattern, for example, where Buddha sometimes tell it in the Uddesa Pali, just pointing out the topic on or the indication. And then it can go into Nityesa, where there's a more descriptive exposition, and even we can take analytic explanation by the way of question or answer. Question or answer, repeating the question itself again. So it can go into that way. It can be even an explanation for the Nidesa itself. So if we don't understand this pattern in the Pali Canon, it can be too overwhelming. Every time I read, especially Majjhima Nikaya, Dīgha Nikaya, there's a lot of information and you can't find the core of the meaning or the core idea of the sutta. But once you know how to once you know how to tactfully go through these different patterns, you can identify the beautiful meaning in a very clearly, with clarity. So again, this simile or the parable comes here, and again in the Pali Canon, what I noticed is that there are metaphors and similes, and there are analogies sometimes, which even can become anecdotes or allegories. So it's a whole way of telling a story to a person by giving the meaning, and the simile and metaphors are also not the same. So there are slight nuances, and further we go down into this sutta, when we look at the 16 defilements, we see that there are many nuances which can be in real detail. So that's another interesting thing I noticed. So going back to our Vatta Upama Sutta, monks, suppose a cloth were clean and bright, and a dyer dipped into some dye or other, whether blue or yellow or red or pink, it would take the dye well and be pure in color. And why is that? Because the cloth was clean, so too monks, when the mind is undefiled, a happy destination may be expected. Now, first of all, understanding the parable, how to dye the cloth. If you have seen the monks dyeing their own robes, it makes so much sense. Once one day we tried to dye some clothes, and we had two parts of the same part of the robe made by two types of clothes. So we got a very funny dyeing. So I can totally relate to this parable. So it really makes when you understand the parable. So going back to the 16 defilements, I thought of taking some time on this. And what monk are the defilements of the mind? Now, it's a beautiful explanation of most of the defilements that we can think of. So the first one is Abhijja Visambalavo Upakilesu. Covetousness and unrighteous greed are defilements of the mind. Now, another explanation is given that there are two words, Abhijja and Visamalovo. Abhijja means the covetousness, but then it can be for my craving my own things or craving the possessions of someone else. So Visamalovo and Abhijja, that two words are mentioned there. And then it also goes to ill will is defilement of the mind. Vyapado Chittasya Upakilesu. Anger is the defilement of the mind. Odo Chittasya Upakilesu. Hostility. So ill will, anger, hostility, there's a range of ideas given here. When we look at the sort of ideas that we can generate from ill will to anger to hostility, first we find that there are dislikenesses. You just don't like someone or something. And there can be even bitterness. Bitterness can be a grudge, it can be enmity, it can be hostility, and it can be go to the deepest form of enmity and animosity. So the range of ideas, the nuances are covered here. In fact, if you look at the modern day psychology, different thoughts that we discuss in psychology, there are so many nuances of thoughts. Ill will is not the same. So it's really beautiful that it takes a lot of time to explain these subtle nuances between the feelings in the mind, especially on the defilements. And then the fifth one is denigration, which is basically the action of unfairly criticizing someone or depreciating someone's worth. Makko Chittasya Upakilesu. Depreciation of someone's worth, basically, and unfair criticizing. And then Kalaso Chitta Upakilesu, the domineering nature. You want to dominate in the domineering nature. Then we have Issa Chittasya. So again, we have Issa Machariya, which is used very closely. Envy and jealousy. Now, when I was trying to understand what is the difference between envy and jealousy, it took me some time to really understand the difference between Icha and Machariya. What is envy and what is jealousy? And I found a nice way to think about it. Now, in order to be jealous, let's take an example for jealousy. There's a couple who's a boy and a girl, and there's another person, the third person who comes in between them, and the boy or the girl can be jealous of the other person. So in order for jealousy to occur, you need more than two people. You need about three people. But envy, you just need two people. That's a way of looking at the subtle nuance between the jealousy and envy. You can be envious of someone's qualities, someone that person has. But in order to be jealous, you also need to see someone who's trying to snatch that from your possession. So there are very subtle nuances, same, very similar words, but it beautifully explains a range of a plethora of ideas and emotions in our mind, especially in defilements. And then you have hypocrisy, maya chitta supakileso. But then this hypocrisy, it's the way it is, especially in the Listen's dictionary, for example, claiming to have a moral standard or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. We also find in the Sakara Parajika, for example, pretending to have qualities that you do not have. Which is something if a monk does that, he's supposed to be taken. He's not just being normally hypocritic by being hypocritic towards showing off, telling that you have the best qualities, you do not have raga dvesha more in your mind, but to have that in that sense only this is used. And then you also have satya chitta supakileso, the betrayal, the fraudulent nature, and kamma chitta supakileso, the obstinacy. Now, kamma again is a beautiful word. Kamma is very close to the word stamba. Stamba means a pillar. Sometimes you can be really stubborn, not flexible. So that's also defilement mentioned here. And then you have the sarvamo chitta supakileso, the presumptions or the presumptions you have, the arrogant, disrespectful, and transgressing nature where you don't understand the limits and overcome the limits. That's another way to put it, presumptuousness. There's another meaning, doing tit for tat, presumptuousness. There's another meaning, doing tit for tat. When I look at the singular meaning, saramha means that doing tit for tat, you always want to do better than what the other person has done. And then you have another very closely related three ideas, mano, attimano, mado. Mano chitta supakileso, attimano, and mado chitta supakileso. Again, it's a range of ideas. Mano generally means the conceit or pride, and attimano, a little more of that arrogance, and then the vanity, mado. There's also a document I read recently, from being slightly narcissistic, how you become malignantly narcissistic. So again, I think in the modern day, people who are in search of the emotions, psychology, they find the very subtle shades of different emotions people have. So this is a fantastic example of putting it in a beautiful manner. And the last we have is amado chitta supakileso. The negligence is a defilement of mind, or indolence, laziness, and lax or neglectful nature, carelessness. So those are the 16 defilements which are discussed in this sutta. So the parable is that these defilements are like the dirty cloth. This dirtiness stains your cloth. So the same way these defilements stain your mind. So out towards the world will be different. If you have defiled, the destination won't be happy. If you are undefiled, the destination will be happy. Like a clean cloth absorbs all that color. So that's the idea. But then the next part goes on to what do we do about it? So very interesting. The first thing is knowing monks, covetousness and unrighteousness, greed to be defilement of the mind. Knowing monks is the way to first battle this. You understand that I am like this. So even if you look at the Alcohol Anonymous 12 steps, first thing is you identify that I am alcoholic. So the same way, I am like this, understanding that and knowing that is the first one. When in the monk who thus knows that covetousness and unrighteous greed are a defilement of the mind, this covetousness and unrighteous greed have been abandoned, relinquished. So first is knowing, and then how you abandon it or relinquish it. He thereupon gains unwavering confidence in both the Dhamma and Sangha. So that is the part on practically how to do it. And then it goes to say, he knows I have given up, renounced, let go, abandoned, and relinquished the defilements. And he gains enthusiasm for gold, gains enthusiasm for Dhamma, gains gladness connected with Dhamma. When he is gladdened, joy is born in him. Being joyous in mind, his body becomes tranquil. When his body is tranquil, he feels happiness, and the mind of him who is happiness becomes concentrated. I will let the other ones emphasize on or even interpret on this point, but we find this often repeated in many suttas. Pamajitassa piti jayati, piti manassa kayo passannati, passanda kayo sukham vedeti, sukhino chittan samadhi, which is really beautiful. So how abandoning, relinquishing these defilements lead you to the tranquil nature, the happy nature, and the concentrated nature of mind. And then it goes to say, if a monk of such virtue, such concentration, and such wisdom, eats alms food consisting of choice, he'll rise together with various sources and curries, even that will be no obstacle for him. So it goes to another parable, and again, if you don't understand rice, it becomes a problem. And so I remember back in the day, before we had supermarkets and before the rice came in packets, we had loose rice, and the rice had a lot of black rice. So the mother or the grandmother would pick the black rice and the stones and clean the rice. So what this says is that if a monk, he understands such virtues with such concentration and with such wisdom, even if he eats rice which is not supposed to be good, it won't be an obstacle for him, which means that he has gained a resistance or a resilience over this negative nature. And it says, just as cloth that is stained and dirty becomes clean and bright with the help of pure water. Now it's another beautiful simile. Or just as gold becomes clean and bright with the help of a furnace, so too, if a monk of such virtue, such concentration, and such wisdom eats alms food consisting of choice, he'll rise together with various sources and curries, even that will not be an obstacle for him. So again, the parable given is that pure water and clean this dirty cloth and makes it a clean cloth. Another beautiful example is that if you have really seen silver or gold being melted in the furnace, you see that the gold oxidize vanishes and it becomes the pure gold or pure silver when it's exposed to a furnace. So that's a beautiful example again. And the one who abides, having suffused with the mind of loving kindness, suffused with the mind of compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, free from enmity and ill will. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka. The 5 abodes of the Brahma, Satara Brahma Vihara is taken into this sutra. So I think once you start reading the Pali canon, our friend was telling that he doesn't understand Pali and he would like to really understand Pali before the discussion occurred. You notice very similar things all over. So it's a pattern. Once you get the pattern, it becomes so much easy. You don't need to understand everything. The same pattern occurs in many places. So here, when he abides, having suffused being counted, suffused the mind with loving kindness, compassion, sympathy, joy, and equanimity, he will be free from enmity and ill will. So there's a fantastic proposal how you get over these defilements that is also mentioned. And then it cuts to a whole different story about Sundarika Bharadwaj. It even looks like how is it connected to this story, but anyway, I'll finish it because it's in the sutta. So there's a Brahman called Sundarika Bharadwaj who appears. he asked Buddha, does Master Gautam go to the Bahuka river today? Now, why Bahuka river? There was this belief that if you go to the Bahuka river, you will be purified. In order to be purified of your soul, of your defilements, you need to go to a river and bathe. And the Buddha says, you don't have to go to Gaya and go to a river to get yourself purified. You can even you can even bathe from your own well in your own house. But if you practice this, losing the defilements, renouncing them, and if you practice the Satara Brahmavihara, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, you don't need to go all the way to some river and bathe and try to impure yourself. You can even bathe at your own well and become purified. So that is what the sutta says, and I will invite our other monks to discuss the main idea of this sutta. So as far as the sutta goes, these are the contents of the sutta.
Beautifully summarized the essence of the sutta discussion today. Thank you so much, Venerable Ananda, for this beautiful the summary. And so today, in fact, I said when I was introducing the Venerable monks and nuns, Venerable Ayya Soma was not here by that moment. So she is here after a long time, and I see even in YouTube channel, some people are very happy to see you, Venerable Ayya Soma. And actually, we had no clue. Venerable Ayya Soma lost her father a few months back.